Om Shanti and welcome back to Light of Knowledge International. In our previous episode with Sister Maureen, we talked about finding and knowing God. And Sister talked about her own experiences, how she found God. We will continue this discussion, and Sister Maureen is back with us in our studio today. Sister Maureen, once again, welcome back.
Thank you.
Sister, in our previous episode, we had talked about, you mentioned that you were able to see God as your beloved, and that kind of put an end to your needs of wanting another physical relationship, a human relationship. I believe in this day and age, this is a very important aspect. If you could please further elaborate on that a little bit, because today we find everyone around are just constantly looking for that perfect one, for that perfect relationship, and they're getting disappointed.
And that's exactly what I think. I realize that there is no perfect relationship because there's no perfect human beings.
Right.
But there is a perfect God.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we'll ever find a perfect relationship because we're not perfect. No human being is perfect.
Right.
And I see also that when we develop that relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
it actually helps us to be detached from others because we don't need anything from others people. We become more self-contained, and
Mm-hmm.
then we don't, because that's what's wrong in relationships, that we feel this neediness, and that's not good for a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We need to come into a relationship as a whole being, and then the relationship has a good chance of being healthy.
Very well said. As a whole being, you mean we have to be complete in all respects so that we are not so needy. And
And of course we can't exactly be complete because we're on the journey, but at least if we're getting what we need from the source, then we don't feel the need to get it from others, and ultimately that's the goal. I don't say that I've completely attained that, but I think it's a very clear goal, and it's a very realistic goal to get all my needs met from God. And in India they have this expression, ek bal, ek bharosa, one strength and one support, and that works. I don't know where people would go if they didn't have that one strength and one support when relationships are failing. So when you were saying, people said, do they need God? I mean, maybe when everything's going good, you may not feel the need, but things don't go good forever. So better create that relationship so you always know where to go when you need it. And there is a source. But of course, that alone is not enough. That, just to go when you need it, because that's not relationship. Relationship is two-way.
Because it becomes a selfish relationship.
So I feel we need to fulfill the responsibility in all our relationships with God. Like as God is the teacher, I need to be a good student. I can't just expect God to teach me and I don't study. Nothing's going to work. So in the same way, a good mother, a good father, God will be all those things, but what is it that I need to do from my side to fulfill that relationship?
So what is it that we need to do to fulfill that relationship? I mean, do we need to just accept him in our life, or do we need to detach ourselves from our family, or what is it exactly?
I don't think we need to detach from our family, but detach from the dependency on our family. Because, they're still our family and we have responsibility, and there's nothing wrong with loving people. But when I want to take, that's when I get into trouble.
So it's a detached relationship in the sense you love your family, but you attach yourself to God.
Yeah, we say that, detached and loving. So we're detached and loving with everyone, not just detached. Yeah.
That's important.
That's a mistake
Yeah.
that happens, and then people feel hurt. Our relatives feel hurt. So if we can be detached and loving, or even loving and detached might be safer.
Okay. But when you say, again, there's some confusion in my mind. When you say detached and loving, are we detaching from our family and loving God, or
no, loving the family and being detached.
Okay.
And that's what's hard. We can be loving, we can be detached, but to be detached and loving, that's where it gets tricky.
Exactly.
And as one of our teachers, Brother Jagdish, said, we need to always love according to the law. There's actually laws in love, which is not being possessive, not being dependent. There's laws in love, and I think that's a very beautiful, deep aspect to realize in relationships.
Yeah, I never heard of that before. Laws of love. I mean, that does sound interesting, because this is exactly what you pointed out, is exactly the problem in the society these days, I believe. Where it's a half-learned spirituality, maybe. You listen to spirituality, you think, oh, I have to be detached. And nobody tells you about this loving aspect. Could you talk a little bit more about the laws of love?
Yeah, I think the laws of love are it's a relationship again, because, with our relatives, we also have relationship.
Right.
And I think that that's a very important aspect of being in a society, because, and I was very grateful once when my father was ill. I happened to be in Sydney at that time. And I felt really grateful for the opportunity to go to the hospital every day, even though it was quite far, to visit him, give support to my mother. I was grateful because it was an opportunity to repay some of what they give to us. Right. So we don't become cold and detached and not care. We fulfill our responsibility as children, as friends, in whichever relationship. But we don't need to get attached still.
Okay. I guess this takes practice, because even as I'm listening to you, I'm going through my relationships in my mind, and I'm like, well, this is going to take some practice, where, yes, I detach myself, but at the same time, I'm loving. And I remember reading Detach, Loving, and Light. So maybe even being light in terms of not being, too heavy with your thoughts.
Yeah.
And being light as in being in the spiritual light. Maybe that helps.
Actually, that's my effort. One of my key efforts this year is to be light in all relationships. Because, anything can come up between people. But if I can stay light, it really minimalizes the tension and any conflict that could happen.
Right. Sister, we were talking about the aspect of being detached and loving and light. And it has been my experience that I could be meditating. I come out of meditation, and, like you said, if any situation comes up, I don't necessarily respond. I react. And sometimes I wonder, I was having such a wonderful meditation. Why am I reacting?
These are habits.
Okay.
Because even though we know and we want to do things differently, our habits pull us. And that's also a great thing that I saw early on in the meditation. Someone was critical of me, and I started to think, oh, I'm not good, and I shouldn't even be running the center because I'm not good enough. I started to go into those thoughts. And at the same time, my intellect was saying, why are you doing this to yourself? So I was observing my habit, and my intellect was kind of like shining a light on that. Okay. And that, I think, is the very big step towards transformation, because we need to be aware. And once we're aware, then it's only a matter of practice that we can progress in that particular area. Okay. But and the more we become aware, the shorter that negativity lasts.
Okay. So we need our focus on that particular aspect, whatever we want to transform in ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
And constant awareness, because things just come up. They just come up.
Exactly.
We don't premeditate. They just come up.
It also happens that, I'm in meditation. I have connected with the Supreme Consciousness. But at the same time, I come out of meditation and I get back into my body consciousness right away. Is there a way to continue the soul consciousness even as I'm, going about my chores?
It's attention. It really takes a lot of awareness, because it's so easy to slip back into body consciousness, because we've been thinking of ourselves as a body for not just this birth, for many births. And so it does, creep in all the time. So we just have to keep being conscious and moving ourselves away from that body consciousness.
Okay.
It's practice.
It's a practice. But we just talked about different relationships with God. And, if I think of, this is just a immature question probably, but if I think of God as my constant companion, if I'm going to slip out of soul consciousness into body consciousness, can God not intervene and, pull me back?
Not really, unless you get that grace, as we said, but grace is a bit of a gift. It's not something that you attain through effort. So it's really much more preferable to stay aware, stay conscious, keep making that effort.
Okay. It has been said that in prayers, we speak to God, but in meditation, God speaks to us.
Yeah.
How do we catch his signals?
Yeah, I think the main thing again is we need to be soul conscious. When we're soul conscious, we can really detach from matter, because we're always thinking about people, things, time. It's all pulling us back to this world. So if we can detach from people, things and time, we can elevate our consciousness to stay in that connection.
Speaking of staying in consciousness, I had one thought in my mind, and it's kind of going in the opposite direction. Many people who face calamities in their life or illness, themselves or their family, it's very easy to blame God and get angry at God. And for someone who has not been introduced to this aspect of God, the loving, caring God, the anger stays with them, for all their life. And I believe it comes into the different relationships as well. What would you have to say to someone?
There's a new thinking, I don't know what you call it, but it's called epigenetics. And from research, they've found that I can go beyond my genetics. So my life is not determined by genetics.
Oh.
And in that book, the scientists are recommending that for your health, always see God as loving, if your religion gives you that choice. And if you think about it, in Christianity, you can see God as punishing. That's in the teachings. But you can equally see God as loving. So it's like choosing the love. And it's the same in Islam, it's the same in Hinduism, it's the same in all religions. It actually, the religions actually present both sides, and that's what I said about the mystics. They always go towards the love.
The positive.
So we need to keep choosing the loving God, not the punishing, heavy one, because it doesn't help our health. That's researched.
That's a very important aspect that you just mentioned, that, and we can apply that to everything in our life. If we have to choose between negative and positive, whether it is thoughts or, concept of God, why don't we stick just to the positive?
Yeah. It's healthy.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely proven now with this new science, medical science of epigenetics. So people can look that up. It's very good.
Yeah, because I definitely will.
It means beyond genetics. So there's what genetics say. You have these genes, so you will experience this disease. But this is beyond genetics.
Wow, that is interesting. I was also wondering about families and children. In India, most families, children grow up with some kind of introduction to God or the other. But how do we introduce God to children? Because they're not mature yet, say a 5-year-old. So how do we talk to a 5-year-old about the God the way you understand at Brahma Kumaris?
I have found, because I used to take the children's class, that children are amazing the way they pick it up. My 7-year-old niece, she used to go to the playground and meditate. And I said, what did you do? And I thought she might be just pretending. She said, I just talked to God.
Wow.
You know, very beautiful. So actually children are closer to God, I would say.
Okay.
So we need to nurture that in the children, because nowadays they're really getting very body conscious and very losing values and qualities. So we do need to introduce children to God at an early age, but the loving God.
The loving God.
Yeah.
That's very important. But how do we, there is this culture on one side, and the impact of the culture and the influence of the culture that, like you said, talks about negative and positive God. The parents may not be aware of the positive God either. So how do you bring that into the consciousness of the children?
It's not that hard.
No.
No, because children, as I said, they are sensible, more sensible, and they're not so conditioned by people's thinking. So I found that they could come to that understanding and that experience mostly quite easily.
Sister, we have just enjoyed listening to all the experiences that you have shared with us. And to get a first-hand experience, I'm wondering if you could lead us into a guided meditation.
Yes, I would like to do that, because it is all experience.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So the easiest way to start meditation is to just watch the breath, so we can take our thoughts away from anything else external. And then bring my consciousness to the point between the eyebrows, which is the seat of the soul. And then with the realization that I am not this body, I can take my thoughts away from the body. I connect with the divine. That being is always available, but we have to make the connection. God is the ocean of love. A love that doesn't see my weaknesses, but gives me the strength to overcome any weaknesses. Because God's love is unconditional. God's love is empowering. God is constant. So whether I've done anything good or not so good, the love is constant. There is no judgment. Only the feeling of support in my journey. God's love is pure. God sees the essence of my being. Only God knows me as I am and what I am. And this vision of God helps me to see myself as I am. I am made in the image of God. I am a soul. God is a soul. when I can become so conscious, I can experience the union of Atma and Param Atma, the soul and the soul beyond. This relationship is sweet, empowering. It frees me from all limited needs. As I come back to the awareness of sitting in the room, in my body, I keep this feeling of God's love alive. I walk with God, I talk with God, I eat with God. I make God my constant companion. Om Shanti.
Sister, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful guided meditation. And we would definitely love to have you back again for another episode. And we will continue our discussions further.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I hope you could feel the vibrations of this powerful meditation that we just had from Sister Maureen. And the important point that stood out for me in today's discussion was you don't need to leave your family to be spiritual. You have to learn the art of being detached and loving and light. So think about it, how you can take this further in your own life. We look forward to seeing you again in our next episode. And until then, take care and Om Shanti.